Hello again, everyone. Today I'm going to be profiling this watercolor palette from Art Toolkit. This is called the Folio palette. And this is sort of a pocket palette, but a little bit bigger than the pocket palette. This is basically the largest size that they now carry at Art Toolkit. And I have a few examples of the other sizes. So this is the standard size that they've had a lot of the time. It's I'd say it's a little bit, I don't know if it's actually twice the size, but this is the standard sort of card size. And then they have this little mini one as well. I don't think I have anything in these right now. So they have those, and then they fairly recently released this size, which is kind of nice because you can have more colors in it, but it's still really nice and flat and is easy to carry around. I already showed this on the channel in relation to my traveler's notebook that I'm going to be bringing on a vacation. And I've actually already changed some of the colors around because it is supposed to complement my travel watercolor palette, so I'll put a link to that travel watercolor palette video and the video where I went through my traveler's notebook that has this in it. Sadly, I have had to cancel my Iceland vacation since then. So we're still gonna go and take the time, and it's probably gonna be more of a staycation. I live in Colorado, so we're probably going to do some painting here locally. At least that's the plan. And I'm really kind of bummed that I had to cancel that trip, but deadlines for canceling things was coming up, and there's still a do not travel recommendation for Iceland due to the Delta coronavirus variant. So hopefully someday I'll actually get to go to Iceland. Iceland's not going anywhere. But I did still want to profile this watercolor palette because it is fairly new. And one of the things that's really nice about it is you get a lot more mixing area here. Let me see, I'll open that other palette so you can kind of see the comparison. Actually, this is actually a little pocket mixing palette. That's why it felt empty. So the mixing area is quite a bit larger than it is on this, and with this little one, which I do believe is empty, yeah, you get very little, mixing space. So this is pretty much all the mixing space. This I was dedicating as a dedicated mixing palette, so it has 3 little mixing palettes here, and then I have a black and a white to kind of supplement things. But this, I can put the separate little mixing palettes in there in addition to my paints. So it actually came with a mixing palette that is the size of 2 of these, but I ended up switching it to 3 this size mixing palettes because I find that more useful, having more separated palettes than having a larger space, because this is a larger space here. It's not, there's no lip around the top, obviously, but I tend to like to mix various colors and have different areas. Like I want to separate my warms from my cools and that sort of thing. So that's why I brought these out to compare. There is one size of watercolor pan that I'm not showing in these. So basically there's a pan that's the size of 2 of these long pans. And this actually did come with some of those, and I originally had it set up with some of those, but I decided to add more colors. And then there's these little tiny, I think this is more like an 1/8 size of a normal watercolor pan. And this is more like a 1/4 size. And then the ones that are double or like a half pan will hold the equivalent of a half pan's amount of paint. Okay, so I'm gonna put these off to the side. This one's really nice if you're just going out for like weekend painting and just want a limited palette. This one is great for, everyday painting and traveling. I would probably bring some extras of these if this was gonna be my only, of these I mean paints that are in here, because you could easily run out of paints depending on how long your trip is. Here I opted for more colors rather than more quantity of colors. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is put this off to the side. Here is the little swatch sheet that I already made for this. So I'm going to put that up there, but I am going to swatch these in my Pentalic field book. Oh, let me zoom out a little bit so you can see that. Okay, so I'm going to be swatching them in this book. This is the book that I use for most of my swatchings. Let's go ahead and get to a new page here. And let's go ahead and put that there so you can see that. All right. So like I said, this is meant to be a complementary palette to a larger palette that I plan to bring to travel sketch. I will, like I said, I'll put the link down below to that watercolor, the larger travel watercolor palette, and so you can see what colors are in there. There's actually a successive link to where I swatch all of those colors. So this is Schmincke Cadmium Yellow. Oh, and I am using a Jerry's Artorama sable brush here. It's the Rhapsody sable brush. And then I have a little pot of water off to the side here. And then, although I covered it up, I do have a paper towel over here to rinse off or dab off my brush if I get too much water on it. Okay, and so this next color, this is actually very Schmincke heavy, this particular palette. Okay, so this is Schmincke Orange or Yellow Orange. And this color is okay. It's generally not my favorite warm yellow, but frankly, I was trying to get some use out of it and just wanted to try it out a little bit. And this is a Letter Sparrow paint. This is their Scarlet color. And this is it's a handmade paint maker. So you're gonna get some variation in the colors. And this is a fairly light scarlet. Looks like I got some bleeding a little bit over here into that orange, but that's okay. It's really easy to just lift color off if you got too much color on something. Okay, and so this is Schmincke Perylene Maroon, which is a really lovely deep red color. Actually, I can go ahead and show you how I would do that. So with a damp brush, you can just get that off and then rinse it in your water pot and you have cleaned your pan. Okay, so I did the Schmincke Perylene Maroon, and then a lot of these are also from the highly granulating sets from Schmincke, and this is the Schmincke Tundra Orange, which is more like a neutral. I would say that it's probably a little bit more like a raw sienna than a true orange. I mean, there's probably some orange pigment in there, and that's probably why they named it that, but it's a little bit more like a raw sienna, although this is a true raw sienna in this little one here. And that even looks more orange than the Tundra Orange. So maybe this is more like a burnt sienna. Okay, and I will put these colors closer up to the camera so you can see them a little better once I've swatched. Even though these are in smaller containers, I'm not going to make smaller swatches. This is a color I don't use often, but it was in one of my pre-made palettes. It's Daniel Smith Burnt Umber, and it's really well behaved and quite nice, actually. I might have to start using that color a little bit more. So this was Daniel Smith Raw Sienna. I don't think I said which brand that was. And then here we have Schmincke Quinacridone Magenta. So this, instead of a Quin Rose, it's a little more purple. Or, yeah, it leans a little bit more purple than a Quin Rose. And then this is another Letter Sparrow color called Vintage, which is sort of a pinkish mauvish color. It's really very pretty. And one of the reasons why I really like Letter Sparrow as a company for handmade watercolors is that the paints tend to be really easy to re-wet and are really smooth to paint with. So that's always something nice to have in watercolors. Okay, and then this is Schmincke Tundra Pink, which is part of that granulating collection. I'm actually gonna add a little bit more pigment so we can see a little bit more of that granulation going on as it dries. And then here I have Schmincke Tundra Violet. And I designed this palette to operate on its own as well as be a complement for the other palette that I plan to bring. So this could operate on its own, but because it has sort of a dual primary system going on, and but it also has a lot of neutrals and fun granulating colors that will be fun to play with as well. So that's Schmincke Tundra Green. And then this is a different collection. This is still Schmincke and the granulating, but it's the Forest Brown in the Forest collection. You can see the brown looks less brown than the Tundra Green. It's always kind of interesting with these colors because it's kind of hard to classify them. And okay, so that's all I have in that one. And then I have a Grumbacher Ultramarine Blue. And I think I was trying to use my Grumbacher Ultramarine Blue because it was just kind of languishing in my little collection of watercolors. But it is actually quite a nice ultramarine blue. It has some nice granulation and has a nice tone. Grumbacher is a pretty good watercolor brand, actually. I just don't have a lot of them, mostly because it's kind of expensive here in the United States. And I just don't have access to as many colors as I do with other brands. Okay, and then this is Schmincke Helio Turquoise, which is a very bright turquoise. And sort of a deep turquoise. And then this next color is just a standalone color. It's not in one of the granulating collections. It is Schmincke Ocean Gray, which I really, really love. Okay, and then I have a couple of smaller colors here. I have Daniel Smith Cobalt Teal, which I left out of my larger palette. It's normally in the palette that I use the most often, but I left it out of that set, so I thought it'd be nice to have a little bit in here. And then this other little blue is Daniel Smith Indanthrone Blue, which is, for some reason, I don't really gravitate to this blue very often. It is very saturated and very dark. I think it just has a little bit too much red in it for my usual liking of blues. I tend to lean more towards cool blues, but it's still a beautiful color and it works really well for mixing. So this last color here is another letter Sparrow paint, and it's just called Turquoise, but it is a completely different turquoise than these others here. Well, this is teal, but this is called Turquoise, although this is more in the same family as this than it is this. So there we go. And I think I will go ahead and show you how I would mix before I put this up to the camera. So I just said Indanthrone Blue was a good mixing color. I hope I'm proving myself right about that. So I can put that up here. And let's try and make a gray with the Schmincke Perylene Maroon. So let's see if we can get to a gray there. So that's a little bit more purple. Still sort of in the gray territory. I think I need to add a little bit more of that blue. And I may not be able to get dead in the middle for gray. Oop, no, and then I just went too red. Now that's a very red neutral. This is how it goes. These are so pigmented, but it's really hard to find a happy medium. I think we're almost there. This is sort of like a deep, moody purple gray. So there you go. It's quite nice though. And Schmincke and Daniel Smith work together really nicely. They mix very well. Okay, and I'll go ahead and leave that there. And then I think, let's see. Let's go ahead and mix the Tundra Orange with something and see what kind of a color we can get. I'll put that over here because I'm going to do more of a warm mix here. Tundra orange. Actually going to mix Tundra orange and Tundra violet to see what kind of a neutral we can get. Yeah, and that makes for a really nice gray too, but a little bit on the warmer side. Lovely. Yeah, that's really nice. So here we have a warmer gray, and then here we have a little bit of a cooler gray. And generally, if you're mixing colors that are opposite each other on the color wheel, like a true orange would be across the color wheel from a purple or a violet, you will get a neutral. In theory, you probably could get black at some point, but this is definitely a really nice gray. This probably leans a little bit more towards purple than gray, but I've definitely seen that kind of color classified as gray before. Okay, let's do one more. I am going to mix one of the more vibrant colors here. Let's try Schmincke Helio Turquoise. And then let's mix that with, let's do the Tundra Pink and see what we end up with there. Okay, so that kind of neutralizes the blue, the bright blue a little bit. I'm gonna mix a little bit more of that pink. Yeah, and here we're getting another fairly purplish gray here. I'm gonna pump it up with that turquoise just a little bit more so we can basically just get a little bit more of a cerulean type blue here. So even though I don't have a cerulean blue in here, you can mix colors that are kind of like other colors by neutralizing them out a little bit. Okay, and we're getting some nice granulation there. Kind of wanted to fade that out a little bit. Lovely. And there's some really nice sort of pinkish little spots of granulation in there. That would actually make a really nice replacement for a manganese blue or something like that, but it's a little more on the gray tone. Okay, so let's show these colors closer up. But they're really very versatile. I mean, I just mixed neutrals and sort of a muted blue today, but you could get all kinds of colors out of these. I mean, you could definitely mix a very vibrant orange. I mean, you could either start with let's start with the yellow orange and see if we can bump that up even a little bit more bright with the Scarlet here. So you're definitely getting more of a true orange here. And then we can also do an orange with the cadmium yellow. Yeah, let's still stay with the Scarlet because I think that'll probably give us a better orange. A little too much Scarlet. Yellow can get really overpowered by red pretty easily, so you have to kind of find the right combo. There, that looks like a good orange. Quite a vibrant orange, actually. All right, because yeah, you can get really bright colors or neutral colors with this combination here, and I think it's a pretty versatile collection, and I always like a lot of granulation, which I find very interesting in paintings, especially if I'm doing landscape. So here there's some really interesting granulation going on here too. And then, you know, the colors themselves have a lot of granulation. All right, well, I think that's all I had for you today. And let me show you the mixing areas. So see, it's really nice to have these 3 separate mixing areas here because then I can have all of these different mixes separated. I probably, when I go back to paint with this palette, I will probably start with these mixes. I tend to like to not clean my palette and kind of go with what's already in my palette once I've been mixing. Sometimes I'll clean it out if it's just too, if it's too out there and I just can't make anything with it. But these will probably stay and become a basis for another color when landscape painting. So that's all I had. Feel free to subscribe to keep track of future videos on my channel. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like. I hope to see you next time, but in the meantime, have a great day. Thanks so much. Bye.